everyone, and welcome to the AWE Financial Health Series, The Importance of Will and Estate Planning, brought to you by Phillip Capital and Mind Science Centre. This is in celebration of World Mental Health Day. Thank you for taking time out and being here today on a Saturday morning. My name is May, Assistant Director of Mind Science Centre and your host for this webinar. The theme for this year's World Mental Health Day is Make Mental Health and Well-Being a Global Priority for All. Whilst the pandemic continues to take its toll on our mental health, cultivating protective factors like resilience and social support are helpful in reducing the adverse impact on our mental health. Mind Science Centre innovates mind health with biological and social science through translational research in the community to build an undefeated mind. It is the first in Asia to take an upstream, evidence-based, and non-drug approach to optimize cognitive performance, build emotional resilience, and promote mental well-being. Fully dependent on donations and grants, we are grateful for your gift and support as we strive towards improving health outcomes now and the future. Healthy aging is a holistic approach in multiple dimensions: physical, mental, social, and personal financial health. Our financial health is strongly linked to resilience, control, freedom, physical and mental health, and longevity. This morning, we are privileged to have Mr. Patrick Chang, Founding Director of Simply Wills, to share with us how we can make informed choices on estate planning and communicate our wishes and preferences to our loved ones. We want to live well, age well, and live well. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce Professor Kwa Ee Hyok, who will speak on aging well. Professor Kwa is the Tan Gyok Im Professor in Psychiatry and Neuroscience at the Department of Psychological Medicine, NUS Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine. Vice Chairman of the Mind Science Centre, he is also Emeritus Consultant at the National University Hospital and Consultant at Mind Care Clinic, Farrell Park Medical Centre. Professor Kwa, please.
Thank you very much, May. I'm glad to see so many of you in this webinar. Can you hear me clearly, May? All right. This morning, at the crack of dawn, I was with some friends walking the Botanic Gardens as part of the Age Well Everyday program. And I told my friends that there is a program at 10 o'clock on financial matters, will and estate management. And they are all very surprised because it's probably the first time in a discussion among seniors that this very important topic is being discussed. And the Age Well Everyday program is the first program in Asia on dementia prevention. And it's been with the Mind Science Centre for the last 5 years, although the research on dementia in Singapore started 35 years ago by the team here. And it is amazing that after 35 years that we have carried on other studies on prevention. The next slide will show you something about what we're doing at the Mind Science Centre. And I hope all of you will remember some of the things, because I was talking even to some NUS professors. They've forgotten, or they haven't heard of Mind Science Centre, which is rather tragic. Well, this is a research center, but besides research, we think the research must impact people's life and educational values, and also policy shaping, that we tell people what to do. For example, now there are in many parts of Singapore, there is a therapeutic gardens, and I'm told that there are going to be 30 therapeutic gardens around the island. And the idea started also with the Mind Science Centre. Next slide will show you more of some of the activities of the Age Well Everyday program. And we realized that research is of little relevance to people's life if it doesn't impact you, because many of the programs are sponsored by our donors, and the donors tell us that we want to make sure that it's of relevance and impact people's life in the community. So with activities like physical exercise, we have horticultural therapy, health education, art, music, and also mindfulness. But program evolves all the time. As I mentioned earlier on, this is the first program in Asia for dementia and depression prevention. The data have all been published. If you're interested, it's in a book called Aging with Dignity. And I'm sure later on, Maureen will give you some information of this book or in the website. Next slide will show you more on, next slide will show you more on the activities that we realized that besides coming together, there's also online learning. We can extend not only from within Singapore, but even outside of Singapore, because it's very, very taxing to organize courses all the time. But e-learning is something that we have got many people, I think a few hundred people already enlisted in this training, and it's also in English and in Mandarin, and maybe possibly in future in Malay. So I want to pass this back to May to tell you more. I'm sure you're all looking forward to listen to Patrick. Mr. Patrick Chang will tell us more on this issue on will and estate management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kwa. Before I introduce the next speaker, we would like to do a quick poll. Maureen, can we have the poll, please? Yeah. Where do you hear about us? Just give us your feedback. It's really appreciated. Thank you. Okay, we'll just take another half a minute for you to respond. Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Susan Lim, Relationship Manager at the Phillip Investor Center. With over 10 years of experience, Susan strives to provide the best financial services for her clients, and she won the $1 Million Roundtable Award last year for her achievements. Susan, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this webinar today. I'm privileged to be in this webinar today. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm actually a senior RM at the Phillip Investor Center, Raffles Place branch, and I've been with the company for 11 years. And I'm also a Simply Wills planner. Okay, let me show a corporate profile of Phillip Capital, just a moment. Okay, so this is the corporate profile of Phillip Capital. We have assets under management for US 35 million worldwide, shareholder fund in excess of $1.5 million, and we have over 1 million clients worldwide, over 5,000 employees worldwide. Okay, and these are the 15 countries that we are currently located at. And in Singapore, we have the largest market share for retail investor, largest CFD provider, and the largest number of investor centers. And these are the services that we are actually providing at our Phillip Capital at the moment. You can reach out to us if you need to find out any of the services. We are located island-wide. And these are the insurance partner that we are currently working with. And these are the unit trust partners that we are currently working with. And this, please like and share our Instagram and Facebook page. And if you need to have any financial services, please reach out to me. And this is my contact details at the Raffles Place branch, my email, as well as my Simply Wills planner. Okay, these are the locations of our Phillip Investor Center. Any questions will be answered later on at the end of the seminar. Okay, this is our disclaimer page. Thank you so much. I stop share here. Over to you, May.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Patrick Chang, Founding Director of Simply Wills Private Limited and Advanced Planning Private Limited. Both organizations specialize in writing wills, lasting power of attorneys, and trust. He has a team of more than 1,500 certified will planners and conducted many workshops to provide affordable and accessible will writing and safekeeping services. Patrick, please.
Thank you, May. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you, and thank you for having me this morning. Over the next 40 minutes or so, I'd like to share with you a little bit on the will writing as well as estate planning. I'm one person who believes in planning. I say failing to plan is planning to fail. My name is Patrick. Now, since many of you are meeting me for the first time, allow me to introduce myself very quickly. I started my career as a bank manager back in 1984. Well, that's a long time ago. And that time I was very young. I mean, I'm still young, but aging well. And I was very young at the time. And you can imagine how much hair I have at the time. 4 years as a bank manager, I learned anything and everything I need to learn. I took on the challenge to be an insurance person back in 1988. At 2001, a strong calling came. I wanted to do something meaningful and fulfilling and really from the bottom of my heart kind of thing. So I started to practice as a will writer. As you can see, I was never trained as a lawyer. Since this is a legal business, I need to learn from law firms and lawyers, which I did for 5 full years. 5 years later, I started my own company and we continue to write wills, safekeeping of wills for customers until 2018. Some of my customers asked, so is there anything else that I need to do? Then I started another company, estate planning company, to offer service like lasting power of attorney, trust, afterlife planning, and estate planning. That's what I'm doing. And I work with law firms. I work with many law firms. And this year, I chose another law firm. Then they appointed me as a senior manager in the law firm. There's only one part of the family law that I practice, which is probate and letters of administration. So this is my full-time job. That's roughly about me. All right, the outline of today, I'll probably be introducing the rules and regulation quite quickly, and also to answer some of the myth and misconception. And when we wrap it up, I'd like to give you some tips and tricks before we call it a day. We conducted a survey back 11 years ago. We interviewed 10,000 people, and at the end, they reported that 87% of the working adults in Singapore do not have wills written yet. While if we were to do a poll today among the 60-something of us, I guess the figure is there about. Now, if there's so many people who do not have wills written, well, I guess we need to understand how the assets will be distributed. In Singapore, if you do not have wills written, then if anything happens to us, our assets will be distributed according to the 9 rules. The layman terms, they call it 9 rules. Legally, it's known as Intestate Succession Act, Chapter 146. Now, in Chapter 146, there's one section that I need to highlight before I go on. Section 2 says whether you are Chinese Muslim, Malay Muslim, or Indian Muslim, as long as any one of us is a Muslim, then section number 2 says you will not be affected by the 9 rules, because all Muslims in Singapore must follow AMRA, which is a Muslim law known as Administration of Muslim Law Act. So we want to make it clear. On the other hand, if you have neighbors, colleagues, friends who are Muslims, we can do that, because one of my colleagues is Muslim, and she will be able to help our Muslim colleagues to handle that. So the 9 rules that I'm talking about, it will not affect Muslims. And rule number 1, if something happens to me, I leave behind a surviving spouse, no children, no parents, then my spouse will take everything, 100%. Which means that if I have brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, they get nothing. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 and 3, if I have a spouse and children, my spouse gets 50%. My child, I only have one child, by the way, and our daughter gets 50%. Whether I want to give 50% to my wife or not, 50% to my daughter or not, that really depends on situation. In my case, my daughter is still less than 21 years old, so I think I like to give everything to my spouse. So this one does not serve my purpose. And also, I own 2 companies. If the company share is distributed like this, it might be a problem. Rule number 4, if I leave behind a surviving spouse and parents, no children, so my wife gets 50%, my parents gets 50%. So whether I want 50-50 or 60-40, I have to say so. If I do not want 50-50, I need a will to talk about it. Yeah. Single person, no spouse, no children, parents get 100%. But if the parents is old, 80, 90 years old, then you might want to have a will to talk about how to manage the money for the parents. Parents not around, brother and sisters will inherit our money. And if I have 7 brothers and sisters, I leave behind $700,000 in the bank, all of them must take it equally. Do I want to give it equally or not? That depends. Yeah. And brothers, sisters, nieces, nephew not around, grandparents come and take our money. 4 grandparents, obviously. And I don't know if the grandparents are still alive. I think a little bit too old to manage money. Grandparents not around, uncles and aunts come and take the money. This can be quite complicated because in order to prove that I'm an uncle of so and so, your proof of relationship can be complicated. Yeah. And finally, if no one comes, the government reluctantly take your money and keep it. Yeah? And but they'll send you a letter. Thank you for contributing to nation building. Yeah? So these are the 9 rules. Very quickly, I run through with you. Well, most of my audience feel that the 9 rules are imperfect, which I agree to a large extent. And therefore, we look at some of the complication without a will. Yeah? Now, let's say I mentioned earlier, I have 7 brothers and sisters. Assuming I leave behind $700,000, each one will inherit $100,000 equally. Like it or not, equally, yeah, $700,000. But my bank account will be frozen by the bank when I pass. And someone will have to apply for court order to get the money out. Any one of my brothers and sisters is eligible to apply. Assuming that one of them applies, the court allowed, and this one go and close the bank account, the person will be withdrawing all $700,000 instead of 100,000. After withdrawing all the $700,000, if this brother or sister is less than honest, can the brother or sister run away with the money? The answer is yes. And therefore, if we do not have will written appointing the trustworthy person to be the administrator, then we are opening a can of worms in that sense. So it is imperfect. We need a will to say, who do I trust? Who do I want to appoint to close the bank account? And how I want to distribute my $700,000. On this day, there was a family visit. I went there. This man passed on, left behind a wife and a 3-year-old daughter. In this case, now the wife cannot apply alone. She need to find another person to have 2 administrators, and both of them must hold the money until the child is 21 years old. Now, this lady is from China, by the way. Her parents are in China, brother, sister are in China. But on the man's side, this lady has a mother-in-law and sister-in-law. So technically speaking, she can approach the mother-in-law and sister-in-law to apply together to get the money. Unfortunately, the relationship is no good between them. And therefore, we also look at relationship between individuals. So sometimes simple things can turn complicated. She has no choice but to approach a neighbor. Now, neighbor, husband and wife, I went out to talk to the lady to say that, hey, can you help your neighbor to hold the money until 21 years old? Reluctantly, she agreed. That is good news. The moment I asked for IC, her husband was very unhappy that she gets involved in this kind of thing. And at the end, no go. Simple thing turns complicated again one more time. If the late husband of this young lady has made a will to say that I appoint my wife, that's it, full stop. The wife does not have to, beg the mother, the system, the neighbor. So writing a will can be very useful. Yeah. Another thing, sometimes simple thing can turn complicated. 80% of us or more has a HDB flat, which can easily, get complication. There was a case, elderly lady after my talk in Mandarin at Potong Pasir, CC. She came to see me. She said, Mr. Chang, my husband has just passed on, and I inherited a HDB flat from my husband. Correct? HDB flat or mostly joint tenancy. So she inherited the flat. Good news, 3-room flat. She has a daughter, 50-something years old. By the way, this lady is 70-something. So a daughter, 50-something years old, taking care of the mother, living together. The daughter is not doing very well financially, and therefore does not have another house, bank accounts, very little money. Yeah, that's what the mother told me. The elderly lady also have a son, but this son is doing quite fine and married with children. The son also have another HDB flat, in fact, bigger than the mother's three-room flat, which is quite logical. Yeah. Now, the elderly lady's concern is one day, if she passes, will the house be given to the daughter alone, son alone, or both of them equally? The answer is both of them equally. That is not exactly what she wants. She wants to make sure, since the daughter is the caregiver, since daughter is not doing well financially, since daughter is living with her, she wants to give the house to the daughter. Can it be done? The answer is can, but you must have a will. If not, it can really turn complicated. Yeah. Now, same statistics. If so many people do not have wills written, I guess there must be some misconception. The number one misconception in Singapore is I need a lawyer to write a will. Is it true? Well, misconception, obviously not true. Now, which is a law that says it's not true? It is known as Legal Profession Act, Chapter 161. If you look carefully, Section 33, subsection 10, it says you do not need a lawyer to write a will. Now, this is important to clear this down, because we don't want you to think that any other people who write the wills is invalid. That's not true. Yeah. So with this, you should be able to get appropriate person, experienced person, person with exposure to help you to make a will quite quickly. Yeah, will must be done quickly. Yeah. And the other misconception is sometimes people say, I'm single, I do not need a will. I'm not married, therefore no complication. Well, it depends. Yeah? If a single person passes on, you need a will as long as you have some assets, especially when there are potential complications. If a single person passes on, leaving behind the money to the aged parents, and if one of the aged parents are unsound, so we talk about mine, right? Dementia is one of those things that will happen to us. So we really have to take care of their mental health. Yeah, we want to age well, and then therefore this MSC probably can attract more people as we age. Yeah? That's gracefully. And not true, because if a single person, if the parents are already 80 years old, well, probably he needs a will to say that, okay, if something happens to me, I need to appoint, I would like to appoint my brothers, sisters, nieces, nephew to hold the money and to take care of my aged or were still unsound parents. So it's still important to have a will. Some say it's very expensive. Well, that depends on how much you think it is, it costs to make a will. Well, the way that we look at is the price that your loved ones will have to pay later is usually more expensive than the one you are paying now. Perhaps you are paying $300, $350 to make a will. If you don't, it's okay. Now, if something really turns complicated in the future when you pass, then our family members is potentially complicated, and it is possible that they fight among themselves, and they don't fight in the kitchen or toilet. They go to the court and fight. Litigation fee in Singapore is never in terms of 300 or 500. It is always thousands, if not tens of $1,000s. So that is exactly not what we want to see. Let's say don't be penny wise, pound foolish, save the 300. At the end, family members fight among themselves. The worst part is after they started to fight among themselves, relationship turns complicated. It drops from 10th floor to basement 2, and that's it. It's gone. Yeah, so it's not worth it. Some say it's complicated. You have already attended so many talks, no? And then you're convinced. But every time you want to make a will, they say, oh, you need to list all your assets in the will. Is it true? No, not exactly. You list it in somewhere else, on a piece of paper. This is how it works. I give everything to my wife. Assuming that something happens to me, do you really think that my wife knows what I have? Nah, the answer is no. So she'll be running around like a headless chicken in Singapore trying to find out what I have. Yeah? And therefore, even among us, if you have written your wills, you still need to do up the schedule of assets. Most of the people do not have. Yeah. Now, this is a separate piece of paper, not part of the will. Don't write it in the will. Otherwise, when you change the list of assets, you have to change the will. And then you do it yourself because it's private and confidential. But you do not know how to do, Susan is trained by us. She can help you to handle that. You make it complete. Don't forget, if you have 10 items, please put in all the 10 items. Don't put 9 items. The number 10, we will never know. And then print a copy, attach to the will. Anytime you can change the list of assets, but you don't have to change your will if you do not like to. And then review it once a while because assets are likely to change. Well, many people, they write wills. One of the main reasons why they want to make wills is because among the family members, maybe one of them you like more than the others. Yeah. It's a 5-star kind of 5 hearts kind of beneficiary. Can you give a lot of money to the person? The answer is yes. Now another one, maybe 1 heart or 1 star. Can you give less? The answer is also yes. If someone have broken your heart, can you don't give? The answer is also yes. You can even donate it to charity. Yeah? So this is really allowing you to express your wish or wishes, as in how would you like to have your assets distributed. The number one reason why people make will. Now the other reason is you would like to open your eyes big, or your big eyes also can, to appoint executor. I give everything to my wife, and therefore I appoint her to be the executor. Executor's job is to close the bank account, pay off my debts, and take the money, or maybe distribute the money if there are more than one beneficiary. So logically, you appoint the beneficiary to be the executor. But don't stop there, because I travel with my wife all the time. If something happens to both of us, I need another person. So I have a sister who's an accountant. Yeah, I have another sister who's a bookkeeper. So making wills, you might want to appoint more than one person, one at a time, not all three coming at the same time. And then for just now, the lady who has the house and the 2 children, she came to see me. I wrote the will for her. And in her will, she said, when she passes, she'd like to give the house to the daughter. Can or not? Can lah, huh? Daughter, more than 35 years old, single, not owning another HDB flat, eligible. Then she gave her stocks and shares, some Singtel share, I saw it, and some cash she inherited from her late husband to the son. It might not be 50-50 as in, the amount of money exactly the same. No, it cannot be. But that is not her concern. The concern is really the daughter must have the house. Otherwise, she will feel very guilty, and she doesn't feel nice. So we managed to solve a potentially complicated problem with a simple will. Yeah. Tips. CPF money can never be included in the will, no matter who writes the will for you. And if you've not got your CPF money done, we would like to encourage you to do up your CPF nomination, which is really piece of cake, walk in the park. It's so simple. You don't even have to show up in CPF board. Susan has done so many online. Just let us know. We can help you. Yeah, Susan and myself can be the witness. You need 2 witnesses, by the way. I'll get our details. You can get it done within minutes. Yeah. Insurance policy is equally important. I handle some estate cases. People pass us on, and then they look for me. In 2016, one of the young gentlemen, 32 years old, met an accident and passed on in Melbourne, Australia. And his insurance policy, including the employer benefit, was $4.2 million, which I thought, I should tell everybody, insurance is important. Insurance policy, if you like, as part of the estate planning process, you can make a nomination. The moment you make a nomination, we'll pay the nominee. You try not to use the will to complicate and say, oh, insurance policy, I put A, but in the will, I want to put B. Try not to do that. You confuse people. Those policy without nomination, don't worry. Yeah, if you have 5 policy, you nominated 1, the other 4 will be covered by our will. Yeah, so the will is still important because it covers anything that's not nominated. Yeah. Plan for joint assets. Because of survivorship rule and common disaster situation. I have a house with my wife, joint tenancy. I bank accounts with my wife, joint account. So if I pass first, my wife gets the houses and the bank accounts. I cannot write in the will to say, if I pass first, I do not want to give the houses and bank accounts to my wife. No, a law is a law. But does it mean that I do not have to consider all these assets? No, I still have to. Because in case of a common disaster, I'm older than my wife, by the way. Now, in case of common disaster, assuming something happens to both of us, we take the same plane, and somehow that pilot that morning, send 2 of us instead of, to somewhere that we want to go straight to heaven. Up, 2 of us, we go to heaven immediately. Yeah? Now, if that being the case, if they cannot tell who reaches first, they will say, because I'm older, I came out first, and therefore I must arrive first. If I arrive first, all my 3 houses and 2 bank accounts, it will go to my wife, being the youngest spouse. If my wife being the youngest spouse, has a will to say, all my money I like to give to my mother, my mother-in-law, in other words. Yeah, that's it. All my 3 houses, my 2 bank accounts will go to my mother. And therefore, in common disaster, you need to know how to handle. Moral of the story, if you are still choosing a spouse, try to choose an older one so that you are the younger spouse, then your will more powerful. Yeah? But if you have already made your decision, then don't change it, whatever it is. If you have assets all over the place, then we say you write a will in the countries that you have significant assets. Almost all my assets are in Singapore. I do have a condo in bank account in Malaysia. Therefore, I make a will in Singapore to say this one for my Singapore assets, one more in Malaysia to say this one distribute my Malaysia assets. That makes it easier. Yeah. And this is what I recommend. I've handled quite many cases. This is the best way. Now, if you do have assets in China, well, we can do a China will in Singapore because I have a China lawyer in Singapore handling that. If you need it, let us know. Yeah. Now let's move on quite quickly to introduce to you what exactly is estate planning. Estate planning is a very big picture, in my opinion, and will writing is unfortunately a very small aspect of estate planning. And therefore, other than will writing, there are a lot more that we need to consider. The myth of estate planning is really, oh, it is only for the rich and famous. Not exactly the case. Technically speaking, any one of us who have some kind of assets, some kind of liabilities, some kind of responsibilities, we need to plan for it. For example, sometimes young people came to see me and say, Mr. Chang, I'm 25, but I don't have much. Do I plan for estate planning? Do I do estate planning rather? I say, hey, young man, young lady, usually they will say, I don't have much money. I say, hey, do you have responsibility or not? Okay lah, fair enough, you don't have much money, but do you have responsibility? Yeah, I got aged parents, brothers and sisters, some of them still pursuing, a tertiary education. I'm being the eldest, just like myself, I'm the eldest in the family. Does that mean that when I was 25 years old, I cannot do estate planning? Not true, yeah? So it's not for the rich and famous. Estate planning is about taking care of responsibilities and liabilities. Yeah? I'm too young for it. Just similarly, just not the case. Now, who can do estate planning? Anyone that is above 21 years old can do estate planning. Yeah? Traditionally, people say, oh, estate planning is they will take care of your assets when you close your eyes permanently. The modern estate planning is no longer talking about death, talking about estate duty, talking about taxes. Now we extend it to take care of unable to perform. Yeah, even like my science center, we also talk about dementia. We talk about aging well. Yeah, financially, this is what we are talking about. If someone is unable to perform, no, have in terms of finance, financially, have you got your planning done? So we are here to help people to plan just in case they are unable to perform, just in case they are unsound. So it's also part of the aging well process. So what is an estate? Now there are two parts to it. It is actually between what you own and what you owe. Yeah. So there are two parts. This is a T formula. On one hand, we do have some CPF assets. We have some CPF, right? I just talked about CPF nomination just now. We do have insurance policy, I suppose. Look at the insurance sum assured, can be a lot of money. Look at the insurance cash value, can be a lot of money. So CPF insurance play a very important part in estate planning. In fact, those are the foundation of estate planning. And moving forward, you don't put your money in the bank, you invest the money, and therefore investment is part of it. Some of us invest in houses, some of us invest in antique cars, whatever. So you invest. And then the remaining cash in the banks, which you don't invest, is also part of your assets. And some of us have overseas assets, like myself, a condo in Malaysia, another small apartment in China. Those are overseas assets. All this is what you own now. Yeah, yeah, you own something, but on the other hand of the formula, you do owe something. Owe people rather. So we look at the credit cards. Well, nobody will ensure that when they leave the world, there's no outstanding. Most likely we have, and it's perfectly all right. Don't have to be so careful that you make sure you leave no outstanding. It's perfectly all right because we have the money to pay. So just get our executor to pay. So live life comfortably. Yeah, don't over stress yourself. Yeah, mortgage. This one a bit bigger item because houses in Singapore. Even I just heard the news. Was it a jumbo flat yesterday? Sold for more than what 1 million? My goodness. Now HDB flat is more than 1 million. I think many of us are millionaire, you know. Wow. So mortgage is a big one. Why? Because there are not many people pay off the house when you first purchase it. Mortgage, I would suggest that if there's a mortgage, outstanding mortgage, speak with your financial planner, like people like Susan, to get your outstanding mortgage taken care of. If you do have mortgage, please don't a house, don't leave a house to your family, a broken house, house not fully paid, not so nice. I don't want my daughter and my 12 years old daughter to worry about my, finance, my outstanding mortgage, which then they have to look at the option of refinancing. Wow, terrible. It's just terrible. No, peace of mind. Estate planning is about all this. And then, wow, some of us might have small loan, outstanding overdraft, or it doesn't matter. It is okay. Loan is not a dirty word. I want to stress the concept. Loan is not a dirty word, please. If you can borrow, it means that your credit rating is good. Everybody can borrow, okay? So don't think that loan is no good. Yeah. All right, get it paid. And then taxes, especially overseas Singapore, we don't have estate duty and therefore less concern. But now you and I know that quietly the authority is already implementing wealth taxes. So you have more than 3 bungalows, 5 apartments, you know what I'm talking about, yeah? The property tax on the wealth taxes, we call that, yeah, as estate planner, we call it wealth taxes in Singapore. So plan for it and get an estate planner to get it done. Medical bills, sometimes is big, sometimes is small. It depends. It depends on the last days, what happened to us. If it is prolonged medical, well, it can be quite a hefty sum. But if it is sudden, then there's nothing. But one of my fellow estate planners, recently the mother left, and quite fast, within days, So that one, not much of medical bills, technically speaking, yeah. Legal fees like probate fees lah, sometimes buy sell of property, transfer of properties, closing bank accounts, especially the legal fees involved in settling or overseas assets or estate. It can be quite a bit of money, and therefore all these are liabilities or responsibilities that you have. So let's look at this carefully when you do estate planning. Now, I like to say this: if what you own is more than what you owe, then that is good news lah, huh? Because positive estate easier to plan. In fact, ideally speaking, it should be like that. But if it's exactly the same, it's unlikely lah. But assuming lah, it's what happened is exactly the same, then you get nothing lah. There's nothing much to plan already because the beneficiary get nothing. But still part of planning, at least you zeroize it. On the other hand, unfortunately, I've seen some cases you have less than your liabilities. Technically speaking, this is a negative or bankrupt estate. This group of people better do something now, because you probably would not want to, people to name you as living a bankrupt estate. No? That is very bad news, and bad names some more. Huh? But we can help, yeah, even not spending too much money or even spending nothing. Yeah, we can convert a bankrupt estate into a positive estate, and we can do that. Yeah. And do you have enough? That I will know, because it's so private and confidential. Seriously, I really, not in the group like this, to put my nose into everybody's estate. So you can take it offline with Susan and myself. Do you need estate planning? Nobody can tell what happened in the future. Yeah. Therefore, whether accident comes first or tomorrow comes first, I really don't know. And especially if this part, the accident comes, then really too late to plan already. Yeah, if there's a prolonged illness or chronic illness, not so bad. We still have the time to look at it, to see how we can restructure it, how we can use some of the tools, estate planning tools, to help you. But accident comes, I'm sorry, just too late. So never be overconfident that no. Accident will never happen to me. Oh, don't say that thing. Anything can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Particularly accident. Yeah. Now, this estate planning tool is a big summary or review of what I have in mind. As you can see, making a will is really the foundation. If you want to do estate planning, you don't even have a will written or CPF nominated, seriously, I think you have a lot to do lah. Huh? So as part of the estate planning tools, it also involves, as I said earlier, the foundation, which is insurance and investment. Everybody should have this. Why insurance? For protection, for accumulation. Why investment? Because there's this thing called inflation. Inflation is so high, you can't afford to put the money in the bank. They pay you 0.05%. If you think the safest place of putting the money is in the bank, I'm sorry, I better bring to your attention there's this thing called inflation. If you don't invest your money just shrink. It gets smaller and smaller. So technically speaking, nobody can afford not to invest. I don't know whether it makes sense to you, but to me it makes sense. Yeah. And then not just now we talk about last will. In fact, there's another element of planning. It is particularly about dementia, which is about mind that we are talking about. Very appropriate to this organization. Lasting power of attorney. I can only use the will when I pass on. But if one day something happens to me, especially accident, it affects my mental ability, capacity. If I turn coma, unsound, even I have a will written, which I've revised seven times by now. It is very up to date. Okay, still cannot be used because you can only use a will when a person passes on. And therefore, lasting power attorney, you can see. I don't even have to tell you. Authorities of the government authorities, everyone is encouraging you to do it. In fact, they've just announced to make things even easier. 14 November onwards, they digitalize it. But this digitalization of LPA application, many people got confused. They say, oh, I just go to online, done already, huh? No need to see a doctor. No, I'm sorry. I think you got it wrong. You still have to see a CI, certificate issuer. In my case, we use lawyer in our firm to prove that you have sound mind. So that one cannot be done online. Right? So there are a little bit of confusion. But if you would like to understand more, our company help people, right? Make about between 200 to 300 LPAs per month. And therefore, we can help to answer. Some of my clients, they say, hey, I heard about this thing, the pull the plug one. What do you call that? Oh, advanced medical directive. Also, we help people. Unfortunately, this one must be witnessed by doctor, and I don't see a doctor in my law firm or will writing firm. Therefore, we give you the form, we fill out the form for you, but you need to see a doctor to get it witnessed. But we still can help. We facilitate. You see, more and more of my customers are essentially now looking at probably the ultimate of creating a trust to handle their assets because they have young children and especially special needs children. Yeah, yesterday I just met one, a lady who have a child, but adult child, not the 3 years old. No, it's already adult, 20-something years old, Down syndrome. I think you know what I'm talking about. So she need a trust. In addition to the SNTC, Special Need Trust Company, that's a government initiative. She already set up. But she said, no, I'm not going to put all my money there. I want you to help me to manage also. So we set up a private trust for her in that sense. So trust essentially is to take care of the vulnerable beneficiaries or young children, special needs children, or elderly parents, and also to protect the family members if the sum is large. You leave behind $5 to $10 million for two beneficiaries, each get $2.5 million. Oh, might not be good. So you might want to look at the trust to take care of them. And especially if you want someone to take care of your beneficiary over a longer period of time. So that one, if you appoint brother, sister, father, mother, they might not be able to do it because over a long period of time, let's say 20 years, 30 years. So most likely we get a professional company to do it. So this is just part of the estate planning tools commonly used, and there might be some more. For example, the other one that I briefly mentioned is business succession planning. So to business owners, if you use this, it's not good enough. They cannot cover business succession planning. So I still have to talk to them about the BSP, business succession planning. So there are many more that I probably can't, tell you everything. But anyway, estate planning is quite a complicated process. We have the experience for the past 30 over years. We have been doing that. And therefore, you need look for us, Susan or myself. Yeah. Now, this is a will, yeah, which is easily done. I can get it done within 45 minutes. And I just now did mention about lasting power of attorney. I mean, I'm sound mind now. I appoint someone to take care of my body and the money in case I turn unsound in the future. So that person is known as Doni. So I need to appoint a Doni. Whereas in the will, I appoint executor. I give my money to the beneficiary. In the LPA, I don't give money away because I'm still alive. and around. And therefore, my wife, who is a donee, will take care of my body using my money. So between will and LPA, which one is more important? Some say will, some say LPA. Actually, they are equally important. If they are equally important, and I would also like to say they are equally urgent. If they are important and urgent, then I guess you don't want to take too long to, postpone or procrastinate, we call that, and get someone to do it, immediately. Yeah. Now, why is it important to have LPA? Will is quite obvious already. Yeah. Because if you get an LPA, how long it takes? Probably about 45 minutes. You come to our office, and how much it costs? Probably about $107. That's our fee. Yeah. And after doing that, in fact, technically speaking, it should be most of them. Most of my customers who got it done, they feel very relieved. Finally, they got it done. Actually, I wanted to do it for a long time already. Just don't know where to go, how to do. Nobody guide them. Now, if something happens to me, I turned and saw yesterday, you might think that, oh, since I'm married, my wife will manage my finance and my health. Not true. My wife needs to apply for court-appointed deputy, even she is my wife, because I don't have LPA. And therefore, applying for court-appointed deputies to do the job that's stated in the LPA, if I have one earlier, it will cost her a lot of time and a lot of money. Easily 4 to 8 months. My law firm, I have a law firm. My law firm, we handle this. Yeah, we know what to do. And the fee over our end, 7,000, minimum 7,000. Anything less, a bit complicated. Yeah, because the process we have gone through so many times is not easy to handle, and every case is different. Yeah, this is a very painful process. So we would like to say prevention is always better than cure. Just MSC, we do it not because we turn unsound already, not because we lose mental capacity. No, we want to prevent. We want to age well. We want to have strong mental health in that sense. So I'd like to ask you to seriously consider making an LPA while you're still okay. You save a lot of money. All right, over the past, 35 minutes, now you get a little bit of knowledge. Sometimes people say knowledge is power. I don't quite agree, because I always feel that knowledge per se, no power. You know, but you never use it, no power. So you got to use it. You got to share with people, get things done, call for action. Knowledge in action is power. This one I agree a bit more. So today you know a little bit about the law. I hope you use the law. Otherwise, part of the money might go to your mother-in-law. I know you like your mother-in-law. Me too, I love my mother-in-law. But I got to tell her how much I love her, right? In my will, right? Otherwise, she won't know how much I love her. So, do something. If you want to give more to your mother-in-law, I'll write for you also, yeah? All right, that ends the presentation. We are now go back to May. I think May will help us with the Q&A. Yeah, May, back to you.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, I think having an estate plan is really critical to the well-being of both our families and ourselves. The peace of mind a well thought out plan can really bring about, can actually help our loved ones carry on without us, and it can also benefit us and our mental health. Yeah, so if you're considering or just starting your estate planning and you probably have a lot of questions, we are now taking questions on the Q&A function. So we have some questions already. Patrick, the first question from anonymous attendee. So LPA can't cover business related area if one has business setup?
Yes, it's correct. Because LPA, there are two forms, namely Form 1 and Form 2. Form 1 is very much like not customized. It is very much a standard one. A few ticks here, there, you got it done, but it covers the personal wealth and health. So for business planning, for business owners especially, they probably have to use Form 2. Form 2, LPA Form 2, it allows the customer to give more specific instruction. For example, myself, if I use Form 2, I'll be able to tell my donee, I say, hey, look, when I'm not around, this company, I would like to get you to help me to operate the financial aspect. That company don't do anything because I have trust set up and da. So the instruction to the donee. And I can even appoint a trust company to help me to handle my business, or a professional independent director. So they're a lot more flexible. So yes, business person needs Form 2, not Form 1. Form 1 can't handle.
Okay, thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
The next question, also from anonymous attendee. How about POA? Will it be valid even after one loses his mental capability?
Right. POA stands for power of attorney, whereas LPA stands for lasting power of attorney. Now, POA, power of attorney, is typically used when a person, for example, if I am bedridden, wheelchair bound, and then I have some properties that I need to sign agreement, and I don't find it convenient. So I might give power of attorney to my wife, or even my daughter if she's above 21 years old, to say, hey, darling, can you represent me to sign on the rental agreement, to sell the house, go to HDB, to liaise with my convincing lawyer because I don't find it convenient to move. That's called power of attorney. Now, general rule, power of attorney ceases when a person loses mental capacity. You can no longer represent the person anymore because the person loses mental capacity, or when the person passes away. So POA is only useful when the person is still lucid, when the person is still alive. The moment the person loses mental capacity, the POA expires also. No use. You still need a LPA.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions regarding will. One from Go Ping asking how much is a will, and from KW Lee, if a person has a will and the will do not leave anything for his wife, can the wife challenge the will upon the person's death?
Sure. I answer one by one, May. The first one, how much is a will? Now, technically speaking, there's no fixed price. Let me explain first. We'll get alert. Because you see, even two people sitting next to each other, their situation might not be exactly the same. Yeah, maybe one is more complicated than the other. So it's not fair to say that if the instruction is a bit more complicated or sophisticated, the person should expect to pay more. Yeah, it's only fair to say that. Whereas our so-called standard package or personal will that we have designed, because I've been in the business for more than 21 years, so I've seen many cases. So the will is our standard personal will be able to cover at least 80% of the people attending this seminar. We dare to say that because it's very comprehensive. So $300 is the guide. Yeah, but anything more complicated than our $300 package, you just pay probably another $50 or $100 more. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It will not be $5,000. I've never written a $5,000 will. I don't know how it looks like. The most expensive will that I've written for a gentleman was really very comprehensive, complicated. Yeah, you have so many watches. Every watch you want me to put the brand and the license, the certificate number. My goodness, that one only cost him $450. He was so happy after writing the will. So it's not expensive. 300 is the guide. So now I move on to the second question, which is about the wife. Assuming that I make a will, I say I give everything to my daughter, not giving anything to my wife. Can my wife contest? The answer is yes. Now, the only thing is, on what ground can she contest? So she must understand the law, which fortunately, I didn't teach her that part of the law. So she didn't know that there's this law. In Singapore, there's a law known as IFPA, Inheritance Family Provision Act. It's an act by itself. It says that anyone that is dependent on someone who has passed on, if the dependent, in which case I assume my wife is a dependent, my daughter is definitely a dependent, less than 21 years old, So if my wife knows that law, and if my wife can prove that she is depending on me or has been depending on me for the longest time, and I did not make reasonable provision. That means I didn't give her a house, I didn't give her some cash, I leave nothing, except the hamster at home to her. Then she can contest. So the ground of contesting will be, she will have hired a solicitor, then we will file an application to the court, quickly stop the probate. That means someone will be applying probate to get the money. Let's say I have 5 million, I leave her nothing. So the 5 million is still, stuck in the bank, isn't it? So we stop the probate first. We say, hey, Your Honor, we have someone contesting. Then the judge want to know, why are you contesting? Say, oh, under IFPA, we have a dependent. We are contesting that the deceased person did not leave anything for the dependent. Then we will submit justification. So this wife needs how much to maintain her current lifestyle, which has been provided by the deceased person, and for how many years. So that would depend on whether the wife is working or not. No? If the wife is working and earning $25,000 a month, I think it's very difficult to contest. Yeah, so you contest, you might open a can of worms. So very difficult. Now, if all being said and done and the wife succeeded, then it will be the judge who will decide how much is a reasonable amount to set aside for the deceased estate for the wife. The wife can contest and can win if you can prove that you are depending on somebody. Yeah, can. The answer is can. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question says, will the courts recognize a self-written will? Yeah, can you like do your will online or something?
Can. May whether self-written or online, all permitted under the Singapore law. Like what I say, Chapter 161, Section 33, subsection 10 say you do not need a lawyer. And therefore, it means anyone and everyone can do up his or her own will. The only thing is I probably should draw your attention to Chapter 352. Chapter 352 stands for the Wills Act. It has some legal requirements that you need to fulfill. But quite simple. I can briefly explain to everybody. First, the will should be in writing, not no video or audio. It must be in black and white. Whether handwritten or typewritten is okay, as long as it's black and white. Or the person making the will must be 21 years old, easy lah. Or must be a sound mind, and then that's obvious lah. Must not be under undue influence, and then must be signed by at least 2 witnesses who must not be the beneficiaries or any of the beneficiaries, or the spouse of the beneficiaries also cannot be witness. I mean, quite easy to understand. But whether, like May say, can I make my own will? Actually, the answer is can. But do you know how to do it? I mean, if you have done wills before, proven that the will is recognized by the court, then by all means, go ahead and do it. But if you have not, then you won't want to take the risk. Why? Because whether the will can be used or not, you can only find it out when you die. And then you don't want to come back and say, sorry, I made the part that mistake, I want to change it. Cannot already. It's a little bit too late. Whereas template, templates are provided, all over the internet. It's everywhere. So if template is there must be a reason. Yeah. So template is simple. Now, no law firm will provide templates. Like my firm, I will never put a template there because if I put a template there, it's probably worth a lot of money. You see, because ours is very established. 25,000 wills written, and none of them got rejected by the court. You see, template can also use, but just be a bit more careful. You have to be absolutely sure. I would like to say this, May, and perhaps to the person who asked this question, the value of the will, which is such an important document, is far more than $300. The $300 is actually the price, not the value. The value of the will, it covers your entire estate, which can be 300,000, 30 million, 50 million. So don't be penny wise, pound foolish. Save the 300, and at the end of the day, the template that you use, can it really cover what you want in the future? I have no idea. So don't take risk. Can. The answer is can, but don't take risk unless the situation of the person is so simple. I have nothing much. Nothing much. I mean, maybe the assets also not much. Then okay, granted. Yeah, it can. Simple one can work.
Thank you. Yeah. So someone has also asked for a little bit more insight regarding mirror will by married couples.
Sure. Mirror wills referring to 2 separate wills written by married couple. That is correct, husband and wife. Now, that being the case, typically in Singapore, out of so many, tens of thousands of wills written, it is likely to be like this, 80% of the time. I would say, if I, Patrick Chang, go first, I give everything to my wife, Kathy. So in her will, she's likely to say, if I, Kathy, goes first, I like to give everything to my husband, Patrick. So that's mirroring each other. But we don't stop there. Everybody knows that we cannot stop there. So we say if something happens to both of us at the same time, we leave everything to, we only have one daughter, so very easy. Everything to our daughter and full stop. Yeah, wait, don't stop there. Yeah, full stop, but not stopping yet. Now, if something happened to all 3 of us, now year-end holiday coming along, so we are traveling again one more time. So if 3 of us on the same plane, and the plane goes to heaven straight away, we have another problem. So who inherits the estate? In fact, now 2 sets of estates already. Mine and my wife one. I mean, my daughter don't have only a little bit of money in the bank, you see. And therefore, in this case, the couple will have to decide how they want to split the money when a family disaster happens. So that part can be a little bit different. Maybe the man say, hey, my mother and father needs to be taken care. Then the lady says, I also have my father and mother, ma. So fair enough lah. We distribute for you lah. Both father and mothers will get some money. So that last part not the same already. But totally, if you look at it in its totality, it's quite okay. These are called mirror wills. Very much the same. Maybe 90-95% the same. That one, they get a 10% discount. Instead of $600, because 2 wills is 600 ma. So we say, okay, if both come together on the same day, must not be separate. Separate and cannot. Same day, and assuming that, let's say, no complicated relationship lah. They don't mind sitting, in the same, same room type of situation. Sometimes you'll be surprised. Husband and wife, they say, I don't want to go with him. I come, on my own. Can or not? Can also lah. It can be done. So they come together. We give them a 10% discount. $540 for 2 wheels.
Okay, about discount.
Discount.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Patrick. So maybe I can just move on to trust. There's a question on trust, and I also like to know, what's the difference between a will and trust? And there's a question on if you can elaborate more on trust, like the annual maintenance fee or any assistance in investment or overseeing the assets during this period.
Sure. There's big difference between will and trust. A will is any assets that is in your personal name on the day of your demise, passing. Everything is covered by the will, except CPF money, which I think I did mention. I highlighted CPF money. Joint accounts, it is never covered by the will, joint accounts, and also nominated assets. These are, generally speaking, the few types of assets not covered by the will. Other than that, the cash in your bank accounts, your stocks and shares, your motor vehicles, your country club membership, everything will be covered by the will. So on the day of passing, whatever in your personal name is covered by the will. Now, during our lifetime, we might want to set up a trust for different reasons. Actually, trust is quite a complicated subject. Yesterday, I presented to Manulife FA 2 hours just on the topic of trust. So today, I don't think I have another 2 hours to talk about trust. So very briefly, okay, anything that I transfer to a trust is no longer mine. I can set up a trust. I give you an example. I put $2 million in the trust. I tell the trust company, I say, okay, trustee, listen carefully. I want my $2 million to be invested in probably some kind of stocks and share, bonds, whatever structure that you can tell them. You can tell them. I expect a return of 5% per annum. So the trust company got to think about it, how to handle it. I can even appoint my fund manager. Okay, you use this company. You work with them. They have been able to generate 8% per year so far. I've been using it, but now I want to put the money in the trust. You help me to monitor. Now, at the same time, my return on investment, I want you to start to help me to take care of my aged parents now. My parents, I give you the name, I give you the bank account number. Every month you transfer 1,000 to my parents each until they pass. And I have a 17-year-old daughter. I don't want to open the bank account with him or with her, daughter her. Then I want you to transfer, since she's still in JC. Now give her $500 every month. This is her GIRO account. Something like that. A trust is someone managing finances to take care of some people that you don't have the time to take care. You want professional people to take care. Setup fee, ballpark figure is between $5,000 to $8,000 one time. Not every year, one time. Yeah. The management fee recurring is probably around 0.15% of the assets under administration, or they call it assets under management, 0.15%. So sometimes people say, oh, 0.15%, like quite a lot of money, huh? Wait. You look at 0.15% versus the return on investment. Because just now, remember, I hypothetically say I want 5%. So the 5% and the 0.15%, they will offset, each other. And therefore, technically speaking, my money still grow, technically speaking. Yeah. So trust, we will take it offline. Unfortunately, it's just too technical. Not many people need trust, and we can take it offline. Whoever interested, can get to probably May, Susan, or whoever. We take it offline.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
May.
Okay, so the next two questions, probably I'll give it to Professor Kua.
Oh, sure.
It says that I am only 40 years of age, but it seems that I have an aging memory. Does dementia takes place at a younger age, and how may I better this? And the other question is, what is the link between financial health and mental health?
Is that for me? All right.
Yes, Prof.
That one would take me another 1 hour to finish. Firstly, I find Patrick's talk very, very engaging, and I'm sure all of you delighted. The memory issue, and can I just link the memory issue with the LPA and the will, rather than make it, or else we have one more. Yeah, I try and encourage all of you, including May, to do an LPA. It was 20 years ago, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew talked to us, and he was really worried that there's no such provision in the Singapore law on caring for people with some memory problems. So I was in the first committee to draft out the Mental Capacity Act. And so I told them that there is a new law coming out in England to address exactly that problem. That a lot of people in England have dementia, and people wonder what happened to these people. Who's going to take care of their properties, their life? So after that, we started off the LPA, the Lasting Power of Attorney, and it went on very slowly. I was in the committee because they want to charge you $50 to register. And I was selected by the government to teach the doctors on how to help people assess mental capacity, right? Then it went on very slowly, and towards the end, I told the government or the Office of Public Guardian that it's better to make it free. And the director of Public Office of Public Guardian happened to be a judge, Mr. Daniel Koh, a good friend of mine. And so we all agreed, we badgered the government eventually to make it free. Can you imagine anything free in Singapore? This is the first time, And so after that, people picked up. Now it's going up very fast now. But I better warn people like May and Wheeling, they're going to close it soon. Then after they get back to $50 again, there's money to make, So I told the minister, hold on for a while, maybe a few more years. After all, we're not that poor. And so I hope you'll do it, because I often go to court now, because when someone sign all this wrongly or manage it wrongly, at a time when they're early memory problems, all right? If the memory problems, then they don't know who will be the person to, as Patrick mentioned, the donor, someone to look after you. Now, this is very important. I've been to court where the children squabble over money, sometimes a small amount of money. In fact, one case I told the lady, happened to a Teochew like me, I said, I'm very sad for you, but I will not charge you for my fees. It costs you a lot of money to ask me to go to court to help you out, but the children will fight over it, So for all of you, please do your LPA quickly. And if you have a dementia, then it's a different kind of approach now. Once you have dementia, you cannot sign now. You got to have what are called the deputies. That makes more complication now, your deputies. Deputies have certain kind of standing before the court appoint deputies to look after. Everything is meant to care for the sick elderly person. All right. Then the second part is on the will. You can sign a will well now, like if May want to draft a will, fine. But if you develop memory problems, the first thing, I've been to court many times to help out their families. There are three things you're going to find out. It's called testamentary capacity. Firstly, when they do a will, do you know whether you know the extent of your assets? How much do you have? Secondly, who are your beneficiaries? All right. And thirdly, do you have any mental illness? So sometimes they need the psychiatrist to come in to help out. So it's very important to make a will when you are in the right frame of mind. I go to court because sometimes the children squabble, and then they say, my mother is a bit confused, and maybe I draft a will. I call a lawyer to come in to help out them. And something happens. I'm not too sure why it happened. Sometimes the lawyer has forgotten some basic things about what are called testamentary capacity. That's where the court case goes on, and sometimes it goes on to cost a lot of money. In one court case I went to, the lawyers took a few $1 million from them, for the time spent, So want to be very careful. If you have a good frame of mind, draft a will, make it simple. But when you're not well, then be careful. You cannot just draft a will. It'll be invalid. You what do you call in court? You're not in compos mentis. Means that mentally you're not well. You cannot draft any will. And you have a big court case for your family members fighting in court. It goes on and on and on. One case, if it's going on for almost 1 year now, the legal cost is tremendous. Okay, right.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yes, I like the quote from Patrick that knowledge in action is power. Be it financial, physical, or emotional health, good health is sustained through everyday choices and habits. As we grow older, active aging is really the key to maintain a good quality of life. So My Science Center's Age Well Everyday program is an innovative, holistic, and evidence-based prevention program to reduce dementia and depression risk. It is a social prescription which consists health education, mindfulness practice, art, activity or music reminiscence, horticulture therapy, and physical activities designed to delay the onset of dementia, improve the quality of life, and promote healthier living. So please go to mysciencecenter.sg to visit us for more information, or visit our Facebook at My Science Center and take control of your health and lifestyles. So probably we are running short of time, so we can't cover all the questions here today. But we will try to cover the questions as we do the highlight for this webinar. So before we close, I have a few announcements. Please join us at our upcoming webinar on memory and medications on 17 November, where we focus on medications and how they may impact our memory. And as we approach the holiday season, we seek your support to make a meaningful year-end giving, enjoying tax deductions of 2.5 times the qualifying donations amount. So thank you everyone for attending today's webinar organized by Phillip Capital and My Science Center. Once you leave the webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you can give us your feedback. So I'd like to thank my speakers, Patrick, Prof. Kwa, Susan. On behalf of My Science Center and our presenters, thank you for joining us today. Have a very blessed weekend and stay well.